Hi guys, it's Rebekah and I'm here to teach you the painting tonight. We're going to give it a couple minutes for people to tune in and make sure that they are all set. So just wait just a few minutes and we'll kick off. If you guys are already sat down and tuned in, go ahead and prep your surface if you haven't already. We've got your paper that you want to lay down underneath everything else. And then your water cup that you want to fill up and make sure you lay out as well. Hope everyone's having a good night and enjoying this little bit of sunshine that's out. While you guys are waiting, go ahead and leave a comment real quick with maybe what part of the city you're in or what state you're in. If you're somewhere else, I'm not sure. We've already been shipping to Alaska and Idaho and all over the state. I don't know if we've sent to Texas quite yet, but we're prepping for that. So anyway, just let us know where you're from. Let us know your names if you're joining us. And if I glance behind the camera at any point, I'm looking over at the IT guy and getting feedback from him. All right, we'll give him just another minute to get tuned in. And then we'll get started on the painting. If you guys haven't filled up your drink glasses, Central Tacoma and West Seattle. Ooh, fun. If you guys haven't filled up your drink glasses, make sure those are topped off. Now, just in general, though, keep in mind that I am going to be painting a little bit faster than you. So I encourage you right off the bat, very much pause as much as you need. So practically after every step, I would encourage you to stop, make sure you catch up, and then just know that I'm going to continue to paint, and I'll do it faster without really those breaks that we would normally have. I might stop to blow dry to make sure it's up there, but I want to get the painting finished so that you have it really concisely ready to go so that you can pause and rewind and do whatever you need to as much as you need. And if you're working on a smaller canvas than mine, I'll try to explain it just in proportions on my canvas. So maybe I'll go down a third of the way down the canvas rather than trying to go in inches or anything like that. So for everything that I explained, just know that you can, of course, break the rules as well. This is your painting, so if you don't like blue, you can do all pinks or all oranges for your sunset. You can do whatever you'd like to, maybe more purples than what I suggest. That always looks so beautiful when people do a lot of purples in the sky with the yellows and everything. So this is your sunset. Paint however you want to. All right, ready to kick off? Let's do this thing. All right, we need at least one thumbs up in the comments, and then we're going to go for it. At least one thumbs up. Haven't left anyone in the dust already with my fast talking, speedy talking. Yay! Say those names again. Lucy, Elsa, Michael, Alisa. Hi guys, thank you for joining me tonight. I'm so excited to paint with you. All right, so we've got a whole family ready to go. Let's do this thing. All right, so first things first, we're going to start with filling up the good portion of the sky with our blue colors. And of course, you can change these up however you want to. If you want it to be more turquoisey than blue, you can paint whatever you'd like to for this. I'm going to take this down about halfway down my canvas, and then I'm going to let it sit and dry. I'll probably blow dry. And then I will paint the oranges up to meet those, the yellows and everything like that, and paint my other clouds on top. And then I'll do just a little bit of jumping around to finish off the clouds, but then the silhouette will go on top of all of it all together. So 3 general main steps to get this all done. I'm going to start with my foam brush. If you have 2 brushes, what I'll have you do if you have 2 foam brushes, what I'll have you do is split your 2 brushes between either the blue and the yellows and reds and oranges and things like that below. So you use it for your cool blue tones and then use your second one for your warm yellow tones. Now, if you only had one, then just make sure you rinse it off thoroughly, even run it under water and squeeze it out just like you would a sponge to clean out the entire sponge so that you don't get any of those blues or turquoises in your yellows. If that happens, you're going to get green. So just a heads up, if I forget to mention it, just make sure you're keeping your 2 sponges separate, or just know that you're going to have to run to the kitchen real quick and get it really thoroughly cleaned first. All right, so like I said, we're going to start with our blues. I'm actually going to start down below with the turquoise, the lighter of the colors, and then I'll bring my brush up with more dark blue towards the top. So to make your turquoisey color, first you're going to get your foam brush wet, and then you're going to squeeze out any of the extra into your water cup. Just make sure it's not dripping wet, but you still want it to be damp on the inside. So we've got our 2 blues. What we're going to do is start off by dividing about a teaspoon worth of white, putting it near your more pale blue. Pull in a tiny bit of the blue. So maybe 2 parts white to 1 part blue. Just to start, you can always add more. You can always add more, but trying to take away or add more of that white is a lot more work. And then slowly pull in little bits of your yellow into this color. And that's how you're going to really get a good turquoisey color, is by adding little tiny bits like freckles of yellow until you get it to a level of turquoise that you like. So it's just short of being an actual green. And that is kind of where turquoise lives, is right before it turns to green. So slowly add in little tiny bits of still more of your cerulean, or this lighter blue. That's cerulean. It's a warmer blue. And then tiny, tiny bits of your yellow. And then right before you feel like it's about to turn to green, you've got yourself some turquoise. So however light or dark you want that to be, keep adding your colors however you want to. And try to stir small so you don't spread out your paint too thin, because otherwise your paint will dry maybe a little faster than you want. And then we'll have to mix it again, which can make even cooler colors second time. All right, so I want to go halfway down my canvas with this color to start out with. And then once that's dry, I can layer on top of it and kind of put those clouds over the top. So I don't really have to worry about how clean this line is. I just want to make sure that color goes halfway down my canvas. And I'm just going to go right in, fill it up with my color. Nice long stretch all the way across. And I'm going to go about a third, at least a third of the way up to the top of my canvas of what's remaining. Now I'll show you my palette pretty often throughout, but when it comes down to it, I really want you guys to feel free to create colors that you like and not compare them to mine. So I'm not going to always show you my palette. So this turquoise, if you end up with a color completely different than mine, completely different than your neighbors, just try it out. Try it on your canvas and see if you end up liking it. I challenge you to try something without knowing exactly the rules. Try something new. It's a fun part of art. I want to see what you guys come up with too. All right, so I'm about a third or about halfway up the rest of my canvas. I'm not going to clean out my brush, but I'm going to go right into my dark blue, get a small amount on my brush, just a small amount of that blue. I'm going to start right above the turquoise, and then start painting down into the turquoise. Now these colors, while they're still wet, are going to blend into each other and create a transition color. So that blue, while it's still wet underneath, will blend with that new blue on top. I'm not too worried about the line being really a perfect transition because I'll have clouds on top, and also having a little bit of texture in that blue gives a nice feel to the canvas, to not have really perfect blending, but to just have a little bit of texture coming through. And then I'm just going to keep picking up more and more of my solid blue, the dark blue, and continue that all the way to the top of my canvas. Now if you've got now heavier blue right here, where it's a lot thicker, you can still just kind of blend down into what you had below, and just kind of keep blending and pushing those colors in together. It's good to kind of mix up your brush strokes, have some that go at an angle. I can tend to do something like cross hatching, where I'm doing kind of X marks. Maybe not exactly doing X's the whole time, maybe switching. I'll do like all my brush strokes this way first, and then come through and sweep this way, and just try to do as inconsistent as possible, and you'll find that those colors, the less formulaic it is, the more they'll blend in. So if your paint is already drying out, like mine, just for example, if your paint's already drying out, but you need to go back and add more of your turquoise, really easy, just go right back in and almost repeat this step and get those colors right back into each other. And our colors with another layer are even more bold and stronger colors anyway. So if you need to go right back down into your lighter area, don't be afraid to just go right back. I know that my paint is drying out really quickly because it's acrylic paint, so don't be afraid, don't hesitate to go in between both of those. If you need to switch back to your original color or mix it again, find out what happens a second time. So leave it messy like this. As far as when I say messy, I mean I can see all my brush strokes. You can absolutely leave it with all of that showing through, and in the end, once you get the other layers on top, you'll actually start to like and really get attached to seeing those brush strokes, seeing kind of the personality of the painter come through. So I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to move on to the next step by blow drying first, so just catch up, do what you can, and don't worry if you need to pause it or take a little break. Just get this nice and blended to your heart's content, and then I encourage you to leave it alone a second before you feel comfortable doing so. I'm going to mute my mic so you can't hear the blow dryer, and then I'm going to blast this so I can do the next layer for you guys. 1 second. An ocean to me now. I almost want to turn this into a beach with some waves coming down. All right, you guys didn't sign up for this, but we're switching the painting. I'm going to turn this into a beach. But if you guys are feeling really jazzy, I would love for you to try. You can make some sand out of that yellow and a little bit of yellow, white, and a touch of your red, and you can make a nice sand color. Just saying. Kind of dare ya. So what I'm going to do is start down in the sunset itself, and because this blue is now dry, and don't forget, if you guys have not caught up, just pause it now. Pause it now. All right, but if you are ready and primed to go, and this is touch dry, you can actually feel it, and it's not going to smear at all, then you're ready to do this. The thing is, we just want to make sure that it's totally dry so that your yellows don't make green when you're trying to get those pure, bright colors. So I'm going to start with the palest of my colors. So that's going to be yellow with some white to make that really bright color that sits kind of below where my blue ended here. And as I transition out to the edges, the top and the bottom, and especially towards the right, I'm going to transition into pinks and oranges. Now to make pink, I'm going to, of course, add a little bit more red and a little bit more white to make that pinky. But while I do that pinkish color, I'm also going to leave some yellow in there. That's what gives it such a warm, sunsetty color. There's always a little bit of yellow in the pink. It can still be pink without turning to a complete orange if you just have more red balance than enough of the yellow to make it orange, but there's all of those colors mixed together. So you could take a second and actually choose some of your colors to blend something that you want to experiment with. So if you like more of those warm pinks, then just take a moment to see how much red it takes to make a pink that you like. We'll still start with our warm yellow so we can really get this bright patch here. But when you're transitioning out, you're going to find out what colors you like more of. And when we do this, this is really important to keep to blending quickly because while our paint is still wet, you can still layer and build and blend into what's still there. If you wait for it to dry, though, of course, you can still cover up anything you decide you don't like. Once it's dry, you can cover up absolutely anything because acrylic, once it's dry, you just layer on top. It's very forgiving. So keep that in mind. If you decide you wanted more pinks, just leave the area alone, and you can cover it up with something with something you'd prefer. So just keep that in mind as we're going. I'll paint a little bit quickly. What I'm going to be doing is on my palette, you probably won't see it the whole time. Hopefully we'll get a camera on my palette someday and you can really see what's happening on there because it's a mess. What's really going to happen is that I'm going to kind of dip directly into my yellow and red or an orange that I've pre-mixed, which is going to be white, yellow, and red. It's going to be a lot less red whenever you're doing anything, a lot less red than you think it's going to be because that red tints your color really, really quickly. So that's the only warning I want to give you before you do any of your colors. Start with a little bit of white, and then slowly add in little tiny bits of the red. So just keep that in mind as you're going, okay? So first things first, I'll talk through the colors, but if you want to spend a minute and kind of stir some colors together that you want to see first and kind of experiment, then go ahead and pause it, see what kind of colors you want to mix, and try those out. I'll start with yellow and white, and I'll probably add still a tiny touch of red so that it's a warmer yellow rather than being a colder kind of yellow, which is weird to say about a yellow, but once you see just a tiny fleck of red added to a yellow, you'll see it kind of turn into a goldy yellow rather than a coolish kind of tone. See it. Try it out. I want to see and hear what you guys find out. So I'm going to take my medium-sized brush. My big foam brush is going to stay in there. I'm going to take my medium-sized brush, whatever that may be for you guys. I'm going to get it wet first. Even before stirring, I want to make sure my brush is wet. I'm going to wipe off the extra water on my paper towel, make sure that it's not dripping wet. And I'm going to start my color by scooping up a good portion of my white, putting it near my yellow and red. I'm going to pull in just a tiny bit of yellow to start. Stir that in. And again, I want this to be the most pale of my colors to begin with. So I'm going to start out with just still more white than yellow, really. And then I'm just going to take the corner of my bristles, grab a tiny bit of pink, and it's going to be hard to see on the screen, but it's going to turn it into a honey, warm yellow. All right, and this is going to be the palest color. I'm just going to cover a little area with this, and then I'm going to start dipping directly into my blues and reds and making oranges. But this is where I'm going to start, what eventually will have the sun sitting in front of it. Now, mostly on the left-hand side is where those bright colors are, and then I'll start to transition into the right-hand side, and I'll paint quickly in order to have my colors blend into each other. So just keep that in mind. If you get a little bit behind, just rewind. So I'm going to start by really getting right underneath my blue covered. Now, you might find later on that you'll need a couple layers of your colors to go above that blue and really cover it up, but white in general is opaque. So if you just put it on a little bit thicker, you'll find that that can cover it up just by the fact that it has white mixed into whatever colors you're making. So keep that in mind. If you're having trouble covering anything, you just have to add little bits of white, and that'll really do the deed. If you really need to cover something up, you can actually pick up some white, give a good coat to it, and then paint over the top with whatever color you prefer. So I've added a little bit more yellow and red, and same as we blended our sky earlier, I'm just going to paint into this yellow, but I'm not going to be as careful as trying to make the transition smooth. These are clouds up here, so they're going to have a lot more texture, a lot more brush strokes showing. So make them choppy brush strokes, make some of them longer. I'm kind of doing this scrubby action where I'm just kind of pushing back and forth, letting the colors blend in, and go as quickly as you can so you can try to get some of these transitions going. And then you can always do another layer on top if you feel like the transition wasn't smooth enough. So I'm kind of mixing some oranges. And when you're going in to try to blend some of these colors, make sure you're turning your brush multiple directions. It's not always going the flat way, but you're also getting some narrow brush strokes. And see, what I just did there was just pick up pure yellow all by itself and let the white kind of mix into it, but it really gives it a nice pop of pure color as well. If you needed to, you can always pick up pure white and kind of paint back out. And these are all really complementary colors. They all play well together, so don't feel like you're going to lose anything if you accidentally pick up a little bit of red and put a streak through it. It's not going to make an ugly color. It just might mean that you have to take another layer over the top and come back to a little brighter color a little bit later. So whereas with the blue, if you had pulled that through, you'd be trying to fight against green. But these are all happy, friendly colors with each other. All right, so I want to move a little bit faster because my colors are starting to dry. I can start feeling my brush getting sticky. Now, another way to solve that is just by making sure your brush stays damp, though. So I'm going to keep dipping my brush in my water. That adds some water to my paint so that it extends that dry time just a little bit. But then also, it just helps that paint spread smoother and faster. You're not going to get all caught up in the texture of that canvas. Now I've got my darker on top and bottom. I've started those out, and I've started adding darker over here. But I want to quickly get a little bit of layering on the top here where it transitions on top of the blue. I haven't cleaned up my brush, but I'm going to pick up a little bit of white and try to make this really gentle transition, picking up some of the colors that are at the top of this color, and then I'm going to slowly kind of build little bits of clouds and how they end up here. Not trying to make it fluffy clouds or anything, just trying to make a bright transition, maybe where the sun's really hitting the top of the clouds, so that that blend where it goes up to the top over the blue can really have a little bit more intentional top to it. So I'm going to start breaking them apart. Turn your brush on its side, make sure you get some thin lines on there as well, and just a brighter color as it lays on top of that blue. And then that can stay there for a little while until I maybe decide to do another layer on top, or I might just decide to leave it since my trees are going to cover up a lot of it. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect or look quite finished. All right, and I'm going to start putting in my darker colors, a little bit more red, less and less white as we try to darken our colors. And then my pink is some white, pink, and then it's just, don't forget, a touch of yellow goes a long way to making it a nice, warm, pinky color. Now, right underneath where that sun is going to go, I'm going to actually give a hard line here. That means I'm not going to try to blend it out. I'm just going to leave it as this ledge of clouds that the sun is going to sit behind. If you look at your photo in your hand, or look at it where it's sitting on the table near you, go ahead and take a glance. You'll see that that sun is kind of sitting behind a little cloud there. So I've just made myself that little shelf for later. And then I'm going to take my pink or my orange or whatever I've got, and I'm going to go down my canvas, finish off kind of how far the sky goes down. I'm going to go about a fifth of the way from the bottom of my canvas is about where I want to go. So about a fifth of the way from the bottom of my canvas. Don't be afraid to pull in some solid reds now. We're far away from the sky, so we can go in with some deeper colors, even some purples if you're feeling really adventurous. We're going to do purples up above anyway, so you might find that you want to start mixing those now. I might just come back and revisit it a little bit later with some purples. All right, and then while this is a little bit tacky still, I'm just going to do a couple last touches. I'm going to choose some colors, maybe a little bit more oranges that I want to bring in while it's still a little bit tacky. And I can paint those and they won't just sit on top, they'll still blend a little bit. But if you feel like your colors are just getting muddier and muddier and you want something a little bit purer, just give it a minute to dry. We'll go visit the rest of the canvas in just a second so that you have that chance to let it dry. We can come back and revisit this. Simpler is better. Don't feel like you have to get every color that I've mentioned in your sky. You do want it to stay as simple as possible sometimes. Sometimes just having a beautiful pink color or a beautiful orange color or yellows is wonderful enough on its own. So I'm going to start with a little bit of my pinks, just to follow the example, but not that you have to start with this. If you really are enjoying your oranges or anything else you've come up with, start with those. These are going to be the clouds that now go up into the sky. So I've got myself kind of a mixture. You can see the spectrum. I've actually got pretty much a sunset sitting on my palette here. So I keep kind of smearing in between all of these and getting my families of colors. So very soon I'll start transitioning over to the blues and getting purples, but for right now I'm going to start with my pinks and my reds and start those clouds that go up behind. And don't be too careful that these follow any specific pattern or policy of any kind. They're going to sit and really kind of give this nice backlit look to your trees without really needing to follow any sort of formula. Generally though, I'm going to start down here and I'm going to kind of sweep across the sky. My brush strokes will be a little bit denser and closer together as the cloud is a little bit farther away over here. And as I come over here, I'll have longer brush strokes and a little bit more sweeping. But this is really just to give some color behind your trees later on. You're not going to see these clouds. Chances are when you looked at this, you didn't think, golly, those clouds right behind that one big tree is why I'm here. It's really to get color, not really to get a specific shape, so don't stress too much. All right, so I'm going to take my pinks. I'm going to start. I'm not going to do my purples yet. I'll do those on top. So if that's what you guys were here for, just wait and know that that's going to go on top. If it's a new pink that you're not seeing down in your sky below, just take a second and put some of those new pinks down in your sky just so it feels like it's all one family of colors. And I'm just going to start sweeping, not quite a smiley face curve, but just little sweepy brush strokes. Turn my brush on its side so I've got those kind of tapering lines when it goes out to the edge. So you can switch though and have some thick ones and some thin ones. I'm just kind of doing these sweepy things that kind of go, they don't go up to the corner, but they go a little bit short of that corner, that top right corner or top left corner. And I'm just going to layer these, pick up a slightly different color, maybe a little bit more white every once in a while or a little bit more yellow. I'm just going to sweep this trail across the sky. This is just layer one, and then we'll do the purples, kind of the shadows above these. Don't forget to add water to your brush. Very important, especially for these little brush strokes here. You want to make sure that they flow quick and easy. I'll do a little bit of layering just to make sure that I've got enough white in the colors. You can do a little bit of yellow mixing in, get your nice warm, hot colors. Sun just kind of hitting those, making them yellow. Do 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 do. All right, and then I finally get to mix some purples. Let's do this thing. So the purples are really similar to the red, where there's a little bit of, actually want to strengthen this color just a little bit. So when you do another layer, I didn't put any white in that, so it's not sitting as bright as I want. It's really similar to the red, where we have a little bit of yellow in there. Just to keep it in that warm family like before, I'm going to have red, yellow, and then I'm actually going to have that little bits of blue added. I like adding the, so you almost don't even need to clean out your brush. So I like having that lighter blue for my purple. It makes really pretty, but either one of your blues will be good. I'll start with a fresh pile of white. I tend to go for more reds in my color. So I've got myself a really deep pink, and then I'll dip into my cerulean, or that lighter blue. And then just make sure that there is white in it. It's very important. Otherwise it'll be pretty dark. So you can see I even add that much red, and it's a really, really blue purple. It's a lilac-y purple. I need to add way more red to get to that purple that I like. Now if you like that lilac-y, you just go with it. I'm going to add a touch of my yellow. Be careful with that yellow. Add little tiny bits. If you add too much of that yellow, you're going to get a brown. So really a brown is all three primary colors mixed together. So whenever you mix like your whole palette together, you always want it to be like, oh, if I mix all the colors together, it's going to make black. Everyone tried that, right? As a kid? Everyone? Or was it just me? No? You tried it, right? You tried it. IT guy even tried it. You know, everyone's tried it then. So really, these are the primary colors: yellow, blue, and red. Those are the three colors that make up every color in the spectrum. So everything beyond that is a secondary color. So purple are blue and red mixed together. So that's a secondary color. Blue and green mixed, or blue and yellow get mixed together make green, and that's a secondary color. So that's how it all works. So for whatever reason, mixing all of those colors together never makes black. It makes poo brown. It's never a nice brown. It is always poo brown. So just keep that in mind. You want to avoid adding too much yellow, or you'll get brown. Long story, but hopefully you learned something. Hopefully. All right, I'm going to take that purple, and I'm going to kind of do that same brush strokes, except I want that layer to be slightly higher. I'm going to start a couple brush strokes off the edge of the canvas so it really looks like they're flowing and they continue beyond. And I'm just going to do kind of, as these are the kind of the shadow sitting behind these clouds away from the sun. So this is a nice deep shadowy color that sits behind. Be as free with these brush strokes as you would like. Let them flow into the pink a little bit. You don't want them to just like sit right on the other side. You want them to blend in and mix. I'm even going to pick up some pure red and make that a nice transition-y kind of color. And all these colors will play friendly together. All right. I'm just going to go, I'm just visiting back and doing a layer, kind of my brush strokes in between both of those layers so I can push some of those not as nice transitions kind of back into each other. So you can kind of revisit while everything's still a little damp, and maybe my discussion about colors made everything dry, and now I can't help you. Choose a second layer. Second layer is always a good idea. All right, and if you need to, now that I'm kind of seeing those colors together, I just want to add a little bit more bright on top. Just little touches of where the sun is hitting. And then I'll pretty much be done with the sky, and I'll get to the good stuff. Those silhouettes in front, bam, they're going to make it. All right. So even while everything's wet, you can pick up pure white, paint that in like I'm doing right here, and it'll mix in with your colors, and it'll not so quickly be such a stark contrast. It'll start mixing with whatever you still have wet on your canvas, and it'll make new colors. So don't be afraid to pick up just pure white. Just make sure you're always pulling from the edge of your pile of white so that you haven't tinted the entire center with a dirty brush. Now we're only going to use the pure white now to make the sunshine later on, so we don't have to be as careful with it. Maybe your neighbor, if you have someone painting with you, kept their white pure, so check around the table, confiscate whatever paint you need. And then if you have new colors up there that you want to bring down into your lower portion, just go for it. Now this is way drier, so you can pick up some of those colors and create even brighter surfaces, especially where that blue transitioned. You might find that you're seeing kind of some dugout areas where you can still see kind of that blue underneath. So now's your chance to really, well, you've still got all these colors wet on your canvas or your palette and on your canvas. You can just do another quick little layer. Alright, I want to leave it pretty simple. So I'm not going to do a ton more as I keep painting. So this is one of those things that you could keep painting this sunset forever. So this is my giving you that pep talk of, if you think maybe you're getting close to being done or you're trying to figure out one last thing to do, chances are you're already done. So don't overwork it. Leave it simple. Just know that you can come back after everything's done and add more at any time. I'm going to take a little bit, last touch, I'm going to take a little bit of my purple from up above and add some deep shadows, a little bit more red than that, some deep shadows down here so it really looks like it's all part of the same family. And then, because I promised you I would leave it alone after that, I'm going to leave it alone. Don't forget water on your brush, especially as things get a little bit tacky with that paint. It's going to become more and more necessary to keep adding damp with your brush. Alright, and now I have to leave it alone. So I'm going to get my brush and my water. I'm going to do a quick blow dry. It's going to look like a hot mess for half of the painting, so don't stress if you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Then you're at the right stage. So if it looked really perfect right now, you'd probably be doing it wrong. Cool? Is that encouraging? That's really encouraging. Good. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to leave it alone, but I'll go ahead and blow dry so there doesn't have to be me just staring awkwardly at the camera for a second. And then we'll be ready to just go right into our silhouettes. Yay! All right, 1 second. All right. So we'll do our silhouettes, but first though we want to paint our sunshine so that when we are going to do our trees, we don't accidentally cover up every area that we have ready for that sun to go in. So we're going to go ahead and paint that just so we can get our spacing down right. Now with the white, pure white, a lot of times the first layer doesn't go on super great, so just know that's really common to have to do a second layer. So my other brushes are in my water. I'm just going to grab my last brush, my small one. I'm going to get it wet first and then wipe off the extra water. Find a clean corner of your white, and obviously it is a circle, so good luck finding that corner. I picked up some blue, so this is going to be really exciting. Alright, so if you want to kind of eyeball it, you can create a circle. I'll probably have to stand directly in front of my canvas to do that, but if you want to pull out a quarter and trace that, that's a great way to do it. Anywhere you can make a kind of a cheat for yourself is a great way to do it. So generally speaking though, start out smaller, and when you go to kind of correct the edges of a circle or a shape of any kind, when you go to correct it, automatically it's going to grow as a shape anyway. So start out small, and then you can, as you're correcting things, grow it to the size that you want. So kind of start out even just with a dot and start to spiral outwards until you get to something that you want. It doesn't matter that it go in one general place. You just want a little off center. That way it really gets the eye pulled over to the center, or the kind of the part of the painting that you really want your eye to go. It kind of leads you all in there. So towards the, of course, the brighter part of your sky over here, but a little off center is a great way to do it. I'll probably need 2 layers to my sunshine, so I'm just going to get the shape down more than anything, and then I can come back and make it that bright white. So don't forget that shelf that it was sitting on. Just kind of paint up to that and then leave it. And of course, if you accidentally paint over your shelf, we'll just come back with orange once it's totally dry and just kind of shave it off. Looking at the original painting above my head, I can tell you 100% that's what happened. I can see a little bit of that sunshine, behind that orange cloud, so I can tell you that is what happened. Alright, so again, I'm just more concentrating on the shape rather than trying to get solid white, because it's just transparent. You're going to see your brush strokes, you're going to see some orange coming through it. You're just going to get a brighter white by doing your second layer no matter what. So I'll just try to get a decent edge on it. A good way to kind of get this clean edge is to envision that you're pushing the paint with your brush to the edge. Rather than trying to paint it, you're pushing kind of a wall of paint to the edges. And that's a good way to kind of visualize how to use the paint rather than trying to get something thick and dense and paint it specifically to have a hard line. It's a lot harder to do that than it is to take a big glob of paint and push it to where it needs to go. So as you paint, those words might not make a lot of sense, but when you start painting and start edging things, kind of visualizing pushing the paint to the edge with your brush, you'll kind of see what I mean by that. So just give that a try if you're not finding it super easy to do on your first go. All right, so I'm going to use the same brush in a moment to paint those small trees, but right now I just want to go ahead and get everything down here filled up with black so then I can kind of know where all the trees need to grow from. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick that in my water while it's waiting, go back to my medium-sized brush, clean it out pretty thoroughly. You just want to kind of avoid having any white in it. So to clean it out, you're just going to gently flex the bottom of your cup or swirl it around to the bottom of your cup. And then when you go back to your paper towel, if you wipe it off in your paper towel and the water comes out clear, you've got a clean brush. And if there's a little bit of white in there, the black's going to overpower it pretty quickly. So don't worry about getting a pure clean brush. I'm just going to go down and very easily fill up everything that's white. Just simply do that first. But then if you want to figure out where that black needs to end, it's going to have to go all the way up to where your color's left off. And then if you need to kind of redefine where your sky ends, if you feel like it went down a little bit too far, you're going to want to go approximately a fifth of the way up your canvas, at least, maybe a little bit higher. I don't know if it's as much of a quarter, but nearly a quarter of the way up your canvas. Of course, your sunset colors are way more interesting than just pure black. So it's better to err probably on the side of having more sky. So I'd go towards as little black as you can get, but if you really like the drama of this black down here, you go as high as you want. Alright, so I've got this. Right about this point though, my brush is so dry that I really can't get a hard line with it. You can see it kind of grazing out like that. So I need to make sure my brush is damp before I start doing this edge work. So I'm going to swirl some water into some black on my palette, make sure my brush is nice and damp. And then this way, my paint's going to flow easily and loosely the first time I paint. So I'm going to now create a really random line of foliage and some hard lines, like maybe the roof of a house. So that would be like a very gentle triangle. And then I'm going to turn my brush on its side and kind of scribble so it maybe looks kind of like some shrubs and just as uneven a ground as I can make it. In some areas you can even turn your brush on its side and kind of flick up what looks kind of like grasses. Maybe we've got some shrubs a little bit closer to us as we're walking along the beach, and maybe some hills over here. So really just make it look as random, as broken as you can make it, as far as it just not being a straight line. You're breaking it up with a bunch of just random brush strokes. And if you can imagine just building a little house, maybe put a chimney, whatever you kind of want to let your imagination do back here, go for it. We're going to have all of our trees grow from it. So we're just looking for the groundwork, if you will. All right. So we're going to leave it like that. And if you like it like that without the trees, that's also a really fun painting. So kind of leave it wherever you're happy with it. I'm going to transition directly into doing the trees, the little ones first, just to get those out of the way. So I'm going to go do that right away. So pause if you're not ready. I'm going to use that same brush. I'm going to get all of the extra paint out of it by just doing a couple quick rinses, getting my brush damp, and wiping off just all the extra paint that was in there. I wanted to get down to thin lines. I'm going to go down to my black paint, and I'm going to press my brush against my black paint. I've got this pile of kind of damp black right here that I've been accessing. I'm going to push it to coat both sides. I'm going to push out all the extra so it goes back to its original form. It's damp because I just cleaned it out a couple times, so it's still damp, but now it's going to have its original shape. And so because there's still water in it, it's going to flow beautifully and easily. And I'm really just going to be making about 7 slightly taller blades of grass that'll turn into little palm trees. And then once those are all up there, then we'll transition to getting the tall tree trunks for the big guys. So pretty randomly, I'm going to try to do them in clumpings though. I'm going to do a guy right here and another guy right here. So these are just about an inch or so tall, a little bit shorter maybe in some of them. Just make them random. Just kind of flick up. Don't be too careful or too particular about where these go. They might actually get covered up by some of your trees later. I'm going to do like 2 over here, a little grouping of 3, 1 and 1, something like that. And that's only because I'm doing it according to the original one. If you decide you want more than that, you just go for it. I'm going to put that brush in my water. So these are really just going to look like blades of grass for a second. And then we're going to put really, really basic like puff balls on top of them. So really don't try to imagine that you're going to do an actual tree. You're really just going to do brush strokes that start like a firework, the top of these tree trunks. There's actually kind of a slightly taller one right here. And it's going to follow the same rule, so we're going to go with that. So it's really just creating a firework. What you want is all of your brush strokes to kind of lead back to the top of that tree trunk and just kind of create little spiral of brush strokes in black with your little brush, kind of just leading back to this. It's going to look a little bit silly until we get those big trees that really prove to the viewer what they're looking at. But just kind of create a little firework, be as random as you can, but just have all of those brush strokes lead to the top of that tree trunk. Turn your brush and make sure you get some thin ones and some thick ones. Those are apparently very difficult to say. And just don't be too careful with it. We kind of want them messy. If you need to take this brush and create little plant life in your ground, you can take this one and do a little bit more detailed work. And for the one that's larger than the others, just press a little bit harder and you'll get bigger brush strokes with this guy, and you'll be able to get those kind of the bigger looking fronds. I'll be saying that word an uncomfortable amount coming up, just so you guys know. Fronds. But then halfway through, I might actually forget the word. And it'll be really awkward because you guys heard it like 20 times. I'm just saying I've taught this before and that's how it went, and it was really awkward. It was very awkward. IT guy agrees. He's not seen it, but he understands how awkward that would be. Now that tree got a little bit explodey, so I'm going to make another tree here and make it look like those fronds belong to that tree. See, sometimes it's just an excuse for more fun stuff or mistakes. That is a bad shortening of a very good phrase. Okay, all right, leave it simple. I know you're going to want to try to get detail into each of these, but it's really just a puff ball. And once we get the big guys in there, they'll really look like what they're supposed to when you've got them comparing to the big guys. All right, so for our big trees, we're going to follow the exact same kind of general principle. We're going to do the tree trunks first. And now we kind of know where to avoid the sunshine, so we'll just kind of create these smaller ones, and then we'll create one big guy that goes up here. And then just it's kind of a row of kind of the medium-sized one. We did all the small ones in the back. Now it's going to be medium-sized ones and one big guy. And we're going to go ahead and establish this big guy first by doing our tree trunk. And then we can space things around that guy. But I'm going to go ahead and break down the fronds themselves first on the board for you guys. And then you'll see it happen again on my painting, so it'll be just a little bit easier once you see it happen and I confuse you with my words in my sketch. Then you'll see it happen in paint and you might be a little bit less confused. So for funsies, let's go for it. So we do our tree trunks in general. We want them, now we're being more particular because we can see them, they're closer. We can actually be more particular that they get narrower as they go up and they get a little bit thicker as they come towards the ground. So that's going to be what we do for all of our tree trunks. We'll get the big guy in there first and then we'll get the small ones. Now to do the fronds though, I'll see the number one mistake that I see people make is that they try to make every one of the branches and the fronds that break off from those branches very particular and very evenly spaced from each other. That's the number one mistake that I see. So I just want to have you guys think messy going into this and it'll change your life. Okay, so for this big guy, he's very large. He's got fronds that flow from always the top there, and then they kind of spiral out. They have different lengths every once in a while. They don't always flow at a curve. Sometimes they go straight up like that. So generally, when you're here on the right-hand side, they're going to flow down like this. They're going to go straight when they go up to the top, and then they'll start spiraling that way. Now, that also being said, they can go straight, and they kind of break out like this. Make sure you're looking at your photo of the painting. I'm kind of using that as a reference right now, but look at your photo, and you'll see a lot more of the details, hopefully. That'll help you. So we've got all of these. We're going to kind of create these spiraling lines first, and from there, we'll very messily use our brush strokes to create the look of this frond. So it's kind of shorter right at where the coconuts are, and then it grows in length, and then it tapers again towards the end of that frond. Now, that's not necessarily the complete rule the whole time, but that's a good way to follow for right now. So on either side, some of them are on either side, especially if they're facing down or straight up. You'll see both sides of the frond, and you'll have these brush strokes going on either side. But otherwise, it's going to come from the bottom of the stalks themselves. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's going to be opposite on either side, kind of which direction they're going to flow. And really, the more messy your brush strokes are, the more you fill it up, the better. Down towards the center here, it needs to be dense and almost completely black where they all meet. But we do want little pockets of light through them. We don't want to cover up everything and just create a solid line. We really want there to be an ability to see the trees and the sun behind it, and the sunset colors. And the more variety you add, the better. Now, I'll encourage you guys to, we'll do all our tree trunks first, and we won't necessarily do the fronds on all of them. We won't do the big guy first. We'll just get his tree trunk in there. I'll encourage you guys to practice on your paper first. You can, of course, do a practice frond there. Use that photo reference to really kind of look at it and see how the fronds kind of interact with the ones next to it. So in art, it's always comparison. How far is this thing from another thing, or how big is it compared to this other thing? And that's how you learn the shape or the scale of everything. So it's all comparison. So when you're looking at one of these fronds, you can say, wait, this one looks different than the one next to it. Is it because, oh, these are all facing this direction, or this one flows a little bit differently? So try to look at your picture and kind of get some ideas from it. That's why you have it as a reference. Try to take those lessons that you learned from observing that picture and practice on the paper in front of you. And watch me paint. You can rewind and watch it again, because I paint these pretty quickly now. So sometimes just seeing how I hold my brush and kind of watching that a couple times might help. Or if you guys are feeling like, I've got this, fast forward all of it. You don't even need me. I know you got this. So I'm going to start by doing all the tree trunks. I'll start with the big guy, but so that you guys have a good way to practice, maybe start with the smaller guys in the background, so you don't feel like you have to take on this big guy first. We'll start with the smaller one. So we'll get all the tree trunks in first, though. I'm going to go with my medium-sized brush, because I can get longer brush strokes with that. If you want to go with your smaller one, you can. Whatever you feel more confident with. I'm going to get the guy coated on either side like I had before, while still kind of getting it a damp brush. So keeping it damp, not a lot of paint, but just enough so it'll flow easily. I'm going to kind of pick the center of my clouds up here for where the top of that tree trunk will go. I'm going to start there. And you can give yourself a little gold dot down here. I'm going to go about here. It's going to be a slight angle. You can give yourself a little gold dot here. And then all you have to do, if everything's dry, you can do this really easily. I'm going to drag down to that line as close as I can and give myself a sketch. But then if you really want to go crazy with it, you can start with less pressure, and as you go down, increase the pressure of your brush, and that'll get you that thickness of the tree trunk at the bottom. You might need to do that a couple times to get a good thickness. Especially this guy, this is kind of the thickest tree trunk because he's the closest one. So I'm just going to go ahead and thicken as much as I want down below. And then everything behind this is going to be thinner, so just make sure that this is something that you can maybe make a thinner line from. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to go from the left to right, and I'm going to go ahead and do the smaller ones. So they end kind of either in the clouds down here or slightly above them. And they kind of go 2 by 2. So I'm going to start on the left over here. This one's just a few or a couple fingers in from the right hand side, or just kind of on the other side of these 2 palm trees that I had done in the back. It's not important that they be anywhere specific. I don't give you too many ideas because maybe your trees in the background went slightly different places than mine, so they don't have to interact with anything too particularly. This one angles the opposite way. It goes into the right hand side just a little bit at an angle like that, but then the other one almost touches it, a little bit shorter, and goes the other way. I'm getting close to our sunshine. So these guys are almost, they're inside now the cloud cover. They stop right above where that sun is. On my my big trunk, I'm going to go right to the right of that. This is going to be kind of as high as the other ones. And if it overlaps some of your trees from the background, just go with it. There's no saying that they wouldn't stand in front of each other. And then just with any palm trees, they're not necessarily straight every time. They can flow and they can even bend a little bit. So just kind of don't worry if it's not straight. Just make it a little bit thicker as it gets down to the ground. And don't worry about that it be straight or any specific direction. My last one almost goes off the edge over here. And I've got myself 2, 4, 6, 7 shorty guys and 1 main guy. And if you have room for an extra one, if you feel like you've got extra space, or if you don't have enough room, don't try to force it. Worst case is after you get all the fronds on, you decide you have room for 1 more. You can always add more at the end, but if you feel like you only have room for maybe 5, just chill and go with that. No worries. All right. So I'll start on the left and do the fronds for this guy. I'm going to go in with, I'm actually going to do all of the spiraling lines that I started out with. I'm going to do it with the same brush just because. And then I'll go in with my smaller guy and add the little pieces coming off. So again, you want them all to go to the top of the tree trunk. All those lines have to end there. And it's really just going to look like you're really just painting fireworks here to start out with. That's just a good general rule here. So with the ones in the background, you kind of want fewer main branches. Have them overlap each other. Have them go in front of the tree trunk every once in a while. They don't all have to stop or go on either side of it. Some of them can overlap that. Leave it simple, a little bit fewer fronds than you're thinking, and then you can always add more. And this is just a good way to kind of quickly just make sure that you know that you're wanting to keep the ones in the back. Of course, the tops of the ones that are farther away or have shorter tree trunks need to be smaller. So the one that's in front of the sun, I'm going to have a branch that overlaps it. Oh my gosh, I touched my sunshine. So don't be afraid of putting them where they need to go. Don't be afraid of covering up something if it's important to the painting to look nice and full. So using a bigger brush whenever possible is a good way to just be not too careful. If you're taking too much time and trying to be nitpicky with your little brush, a lot of times that causes too much trouble. So that's why I'm using this big brush for this, so I can be less careful and just kind of get it on there. All right, these little guys over here, this whole group of them, they really overlap and fill up. And then those branches are gonna go right off the edge. Don't forget to keep your brush damp. Mine is having a hard time spreading because I haven't put water on it recently, but I'm finished, so there's that. If you guys want to, you can go ahead and put the same fireworks with this guy up on your big tree. This one's going to get way more branches than the ones in the background just because it's closer and it won't overwhelm to have it so big. Now, the top of this almost touches the top of your canvas. You got to be bold with these lines. It's got to be bigger than the ones in the background. Got to stretch out. You can always make them longer when you're painting the details on top, though. All right, so we've got some, we got some windmills. That's really what it looks like, right? Kind of windmills over here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. I might switch back to the bigger one when I'm filling in the lines on the big guy, but I'll go to my smaller brush now for the trees in the background so I can get some detail in there. So I'll start with the left one again, And I'm just going to start my brush stroke inside that line that I created and really kind of do this flick out towards the bottom, slightly angling it to go towards the outside of the tree. So that flick just means that it's going to end with that tapered look, like it really is kind of fluffy and it's just ended. Make sure you're turning your brush so that every brush stroke looks exactly the same. So sometimes I paint with the thickness of my brush, sometimes I turn it and I get some thin lines in there too. And you just want to make sure that it doesn't look like you stamp every one of these. They shouldn't all be exactly the same. They shouldn't all exactly flow precisely. And you want some just little brush strokes mixed in with some thick ones. As with everything in nature, the less perfect and precise it looks, the more natural it looks. So just keep that in mind as you're going. Just the variety of your brush strokes is going to give that variety of nature that you're going for. I just challenge you to practice on your paper, just kind of getting this kind of free flick brush stroke. And then just have fun with it. Kind of zone out. I'll get probably quiet here and kind of zone out painting all these branches in. One of the more important things to remember is that you don't want these to get so dense that you don't see the sky between every brush stroke. So you just don't want every brush stroke to be big and covering everything. You want to still see some sky between some of them. So leave some spaces, leave some flaws really in the branches. And those flaws are what's going to make it look really natural. I'll tell you the first one is going to be a little bit panic-inducing. If you guys are consistent with everyone else who's painted fronds, it's a little bit panic-inducing, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta make this right. But it'll keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it'll be as big as your big guy that we're putting off painting because we don't want him to get too big. So leave it alone. Once you get the frond next to it filled in, once it has a friend, a tree friend, a happy friend, that is when it'll start to look like it actually belongs there. So it's really about the comparison. Your eyes are thinking like, oh my gosh, this isn't quite right. But once it has more of it around it, it'll really look happier. So just kind of leave one alone right before you think, hey, maybe this is looking right, or maybe I should just add one more branch, or maybe I should just, as soon as you're saying just in your head, just move along. Okay, so don't overwork one. You can always come back to it. Your paint is still wet. You can come back to it. So before I want to add one more frond, I'm going to go on. I keep wanting to as well. Learn from my mistakes. Actually, a really good technique for painting in general is actually having 3 different paintings, or 5, however many, have them all going at once so that you don't spend too much time looking at one painting and getting too attached to anything. It's a lot of painters have that practice. It's not something we actually talk about that often, but to have 3 different projects so you're not spending so much time just staring at one, you can kind of get your mind to give it a little bit of a break. You stop getting so attached to certain aspects that you shouldn't get attached to, and you start really focusing on the big picture because your eyes take a little rest. So that's something to just kind of keep in mind. The more you take breaks, actually, the better your work is. So if you need to pause it, take a little break, get a refill, get a snack. We've been painting for a little while now, so do what you gotta do. Just walk around the room even. All right. So already, by making their friends kind of out here, by making them have a little bit more of a balance, by filling them out, this little guy over here is a bit of a freak. He looks like he's at home. Okay? So just doing a little bit more work. If you've taken a break, good. But just sometimes moving on to a different part of your painting, and that's more what I was kind of bringing that up about, is just taking a little break from your painting, or a part of your painting can do the trick. So just move on to another tree. Don't get them too chunky. And don't forget to dampen down your brush as you're working, otherwise your paint won't settle into the texture of that canvas. And if you're going back to your sketch and you can't figure out which palm tree one of your lines is coming from, just fake it. Especially if they're overlapping, no one will really know if you did a switcheroo on them. All right. Getting close to that big guy. Can feel it. All right, especially where these guys are overlapping here, I want to keep these branches simple so that even though there's 3 of them sitting near each other, I can still see the sky in between. So I'm going to leave those simple. I can always add more, but I'm going to go ahead and move up to my big guy. Pause if you are not ready, but really I'm just going to be doing the exact same thing, so just keep watching if you want. But I'm going to be doing the exact same thing as they're just bigger. So I've switched now to my larger brush because I really want these brush strokes to really feel like they're closer by being bigger, but I don't have to do that much work by trying to get my little brush to do the same thing. So I'm just going to go right in, my big juicy brush. Nice amount of water and black on my brush. And just kind of same exact thing, except now bigger brush strokes. Always use the biggest brush possible for any job. And just as we're finishing up, these are the last couple touches. We just want to give our deepest thank yous for joining us and supporting us in this very strange time, and for bringing us in your home to paint and enjoy making art together. It is our true honor and pleasure to be with you tonight, or whenever you're watching this, watching the recordings or anything. We're just overjoyed to be spending this time with you. So thank you. If you guys have any feedback at all, we're still learning how to do this all. So if you have any feedback, just send us a quick email. You can email us at info@uncorkedcanvas.com. If you guys had a great time, you can leave reviews on Facebook. Facebook and Google, of course. And then, of course, we want to see your pictures of what you've done. We would love to see you guys in your workspace painting. So if you get a group selfie real quick, we would love to see it. We'd love to see you with your art in the end. So yeah, this is pretty much once you finish this. If you want to go back and add that last layer to your sunshine, or if you want to add any last details, that's it for the painting. So anything that you want to do now, this is your work. And you can add whatever you would like. But again, our deepest gratitude to you guys for sharing this time with us. And I hope you guys had a lot of fun. Please email us if you have any questions about your painting. We're here to support you in your creativity. So if you have any questions about the paint or your painting, or if there's something you want help with, we're absolutely here for you. Just let us know. And just, yeah, we had a great time. I know that we're not here with you in person, but we are here, and we're here making art with you, and we can just all appreciate each other and creativity. And the IT guy had a great time. Had awesome time. Yeah. So thank you guys for commenting, and just be in touch if you need anything. And please send photos. We want to see them. So that is it. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your painting time. I hope you guys feel very successful. You guys, I know you guys killed it. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your night or your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.